Hey everybody, my name's Billi Jo Clem. I've been in Alaska for 25 years, and I came to Alaska to see the whales. I actually came on a cruise ship, kind of like you guys, and I saw Alaska and I fell in love, and I just wanted to be here because, well, if you look around here in Alaska, you can see it is beautiful. It's stunning. The vistas here are incredibly breathtaking, and once I saw it, I couldn't leave. And so I started my first years here at the Red Onion Saloon, and it just drew me in. And I've been here 25 years, and I've fallen in love with the Gold Rush history. And now after 25 years, I own my own company, and I do Gold Rush tours every day. And my favorite topic is, of course, the gold, because not only am I a gold digger, I have gold fever. So I teach people how to gold pan every day. And I also talk to people on my tours about the Gold Rush. People came up during the Gold Rush because back in 1896 and 1897, there was kind of a depression happening in the lower 48. And people were standing in soup lines, and they really were looking for some amazing parts of history that were going to stimulate their senses. I mean, it was really depressed. This was after the big stock market crash. And when they heard that a ton of gold had arrived in San Francisco and Seattle and the Portland areas, they were so excited because they needed something happy. They needed some good news. So they jumped on the first steamship that was headed north. And they usually elected one member of their family, and they pulled all the money out from underneath their mattresses and their attics, and they gathered all that money up, and they sent one person. And that person could have been a doctor or a lawyer or a farmer. It didn't matter. They just gave that money to that person, and they sent them up here to Skagway. And that's because this was the first and only section of this area that you could get to without passing through different areas. This was the closest area that you could get through the Lynn Canal. And that's why the cruise ships still come here today. And it was the northernmost point that you could get through by water. And so it is 500 miles north of here that you could actually find gold. And that was pretty incredible that people would come here to go there. But it was also a rough road. And people would find that once they got here, but they didn't say that in the newspapers. They said that you could actually come here and you could walk up a trail called the Bracket Wagon Trail, and you could take a bicycle up there. And well, when you look at that trail, that's not true. And they said you could take a wagon, and they said you could go up the Chilkoot Trail, and it was an easy trail and all those things, but that wasn't true. But what they really, really knew that they wanted was the gold. And that's what the story is all about, is the gold. 100,000 people came through this little gateway to the Klondike. 1,000 out of 100,000 people, about 1,000 made it to Dawson City. And out of that 1,000, 100 people found their fortunes in gold. About 10. About 10 people kept their gold. But the stories of those 100,000 people, they are still stories that changed history. I mean, that engineering and spirit, that frontier spirit is still part of our history that will never change. I mean, people still come up and ask me about their ancestors that are in the storybooks that we have in our history of Alaska today. I mean, you'll walk into our bookstore here and you'll see some of the people that come up on my tours find their relatives here, and they ask about the relatives that are buried out at the Gold Rush Cemetery, and they talk about their stories that are in their photo albums and their storybooks. And I mean, it is a true it's a true American story that we are the last frontier, and Alaska has a great story. So the Chilkoot Trail is 8 miles out of here. You would have had to come by steamship, and you would have had to land in Dyea. Now, Dyea in the native language means to pack. And back in 1898, that trail was a very, very difficult trail. It's straight up 50 miles to Lake Bennett. And what you would need is you would have to take 2,000 pounds, a ton of goods, from Dyea all the way up to Lake Bennett. And when you got to the top of the Alaska-Canadian border, the Canadian Mounties made you weigh that 2,000 pounds of goods because you were required to bring those goods because in 1897, they had miners that were starving in Dawson City. So the Mounties required that you brought the goods so that you didn't starve to death. And that was very difficult. I mean, it was very difficult for those miners. And then getting to and from Skagway and Dyea all the way up to Dawson City was a very, very difficult task. And so those miners, lots of them died. I mean, it was very difficult for them. A tragedy that most people say didn't have to happen. They were warned by the native people, the Tlingit, that the snow was unstable. They were warned by the sourdoughs, the people that had lived here a long time, that the rain and the different weather conditions, but people were so driven by gold fever. I mean, people think that gold fever isn't a real thing, but even today, you can see even today by the TV shows that people are still driven by gold fever. And it was true back in 1898, just as it's true today. The greed for gold is still true. And those people that died during the Good Friday landslide that are buried out in Dyea are a fine reminder of that, a sad reminder of that, actually. And it's sad that they decided to go through with that because their lives could have been spared had they listened to the people that knew better around them. I love to talk about the gold nuggets, right? I love to talk about the fact that in most of the gold rush towns that they had back in the gold rushes of Colorado and the gold rushes of the California gold rushes, they found dime pans, which meant that when you picked up a pan like this, you were going to find a pan that had about this much gold in the bottom of the pan, this size. And the placer gold that they were finding is little bitty, teeny weeny pieces of gold dust about this big. In the pans that they found in the Klondike Gold Rush, they were $50 pans. So they were this much gold. So today I'm going to show you what a $50 pan looks like when I pan out this gold. So I want to show you that because that's really exciting. And that was going to be the excitement of the gold rush of 1898 that people were so excited about because they had never seen that much gold in one pan. And Tagish Charlie and Skookum Jim, the two guys that discovered that gold, although I do have some serious doubts about who really discovered that gold, because Kate Carmack was also down there, and that was the wife of George Carmack. And she was the one that did all the dishes down at the side of the water. And I truly believe she was the one that actually did discover that gold rush, or the gold, because she was the one that spent the most time down in the water. Back in 1898, they were going to use a metal pan. You were going to use usually a shovel, or you could use your metal pan and you were just going to literally scoop up the sand at the bottom of the river, just like this. And you could take your shovel and you could scoop it up with your shovel and dump it in your pan. And that's all you really needed. Now, if you were a big gold miner on the El Dorado Creek up in Dawson City, they would also use a sluice box. And what they would do with the sluice box is they would shovel up their sand and they would put it in a sluice box. And they would take their sluice box and they would shake it back and forth. And then all their tailings, that's what they called it, they would put into a big pan at the bottom of it. And you would take that pan then and pan like I'm going to show you. And that's how they would find their gold in the bottom of it. So what I'm going to show you is the end result of how you found those little pieces of gold. And this is how you know that you're going to find how you're going to find your end result of your gold. So what you got to remember in any end result of getting a gold piece is that gold is the most heaviest part of the process. Gold is the heaviest mineral in any river. So in this pan right here, the way that you don't lose your gold is that you're going to remember that the gold is right down here. It goes right down into the corner of this pan. Now, in these gold troughs back here, we have what is called cheater pans. And that is because we have novice or chichacos. Chichacos means newcomers in the Tlingit language. And I'm a sourdough, so that means I've been here a long time. Now, a chichaco is somebody who's never done this before. So the way that you find gold is you're going to shake up the water and the sand and gravel back and forth, and you're going to get that gold right down into the corner of that pan, right down here. And so you're going to take that and you're going to get some of that sand and gravel off as you dip it down into the water. And we're going to just dip it back and forth, and we're going to use the water to help us get that sand and gravel off. As you notice, each time I dip it down into the water, I'm taking off that top layer of sand and gravel. And as I do that, I put it back in, I shake it back and forth and get that gold back down into that corner of that pan. And you notice I still have that lip down there. That gold is going right into that lip. Each time I do it, I'm keeping it by those ridges, so I know that I have that gold right where it belongs. Now, I also know that if there's big chunks like this in the pan like this, they're probably chicken nuggets, not gold nuggets, because I did not put any big gold nuggets in there. But gold was such an exciting adventure because there were so many pieces of it in the El Dorado Creek. The old El Dorado Creek was one of the highest yielding gold rushes in history. And so to this day, you can go to Nome, Alaska and gold pan on the beaches in Nome, Alaska. You can actually stake a claim in Nome. And so as you're looking here at this pan, you're not going to think I have any gold in here right now until I lift up the pan for you. And as you can notice, I have no dirt left in there, but you can see as I pull this out that in the bottom of that pan, there's actually gold. Yep, my friend Joanne Arnold and I went up to Dawson City and we met a gold miner, and we asked if we could gold pan on his claim, and we spent 8 hours out at his claim. And we panned and panned and panned and panned the old-fashioned way, took a shovel and a metal gold pan, and we panned, and we got $47 worth of gold the old-fashioned way, and Joanne Arnold about killed me. And when we got done, he said we owed him a bottle of scotch, and it cost 48 something. We lost money. So I'm not a very good gold panner. Yep, it's absolutely luck. They got, and especially back in 1898, by the time that they got there, the gold rush actually happened between 1896 and 1897. So the people that actually found the gold were already had the stakes all claimed. So the people that got there in 1898, they just worked for the people that were there in 1896 and 1897. The Klondike Kings had already established their claims. So those people that got there in 1898, they went up there and they were like, oh, well, I guess we're going to work for somebody else. But again, that was like the frontier spirit, you know, that's where they found the main focus of their lives were the fact that they had made it through the conditions on the trails. And they had to live that whole winter at Lake Bennett until the ice broke. And they had to build a boat, and they had to go those 50 miles with 2,000 pounds of goods. And I mean, they were crazy. And they were eaten by mosquitoes, and they had to eat bannock with peanut butter. And I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, they had to carry 50 pounds of bacon on their backs, and bears were everywhere. Yes, yes. And there was a woman that carried her sewing machine on the Chilkoot Trail 7 different times, back and forth, because she had lost her son somewhere and she couldn't find him. And so she went back and forth and sewed her dresses for the dance hall girls and the ladies of ill repute, because she wanted to find her son and she couldn't find him. And so she went back and forth on the trails for 7 different times looking for him. But that was her frontier. I mean, that was her frontier story. And, you know, all the books that you read again and again are stories about people that enjoyed that time, except, you know, they also were lost. You know, lots of people got lost in the gold rush days. There were many gold rushes that happened after the 1898 gold rush, you know. They went on to Fairbanks, then they went into Nome, and then they went into Circle City. I mean, there was all kinds of excitement. That's what built Alaska's fan base, basically.